2 years into her life as Queen of Denmark, Queen Mary is facing the kind of personal sorrow that rarely pauses for public duty. In April 2026, Mary Donaldson, the Australian-born queen consort who transformed herself into one of Europe's most respected royals, lost her father, Professor John Dalglish Donaldson, at the age of 84. And only weeks later, cameras captured her once again on official engagements in Copenhagen, composed, attentive, and smiling gently at the crowds gathered along the harbor front. For many royal watchers, it was a striking reminder of something Denmark has quietly come to admire about Queen Mary: her ability to carry enormous emotional weight without allowing it to consume the role she represents. Welcome back to Royal Scope, where we look beyond the headlines and into the human realities shaping modern monarchy. And Queen Mary's story may be one of the clearest examples of how royal life is far less about glamour than endurance. Long before she became Queen Mary of Denmark, she was simply Mary Donaldson from Hobart, Tasmania, the daughter of Scottish academics, raised far from European palaces and royal tradition. Her father was a respected professor of applied mathematics, and by all accounts, the Donaldson household valued education, discipline, and independence far more than status. Nothing about Mary's upbringing suggested a future crown. Then came the now famous meeting during the Sydney Olympics in 2000, when Mary met Denmark's Crown Prince Frederik in a Sydney bar. It has since become one of the most recognizable modern royal love stories, but the reality behind that transition was considerably more demanding than the fairy tale version often presented online. Mary relocated to Denmark, learned the Danish language fluently, adapted to centuries-old royal protocol, and entered one of Europe's oldest monarchies under relentless public scrutiny. Danish media followed everything from her wardrobe choices to her public speaking. And unlike celebrities, royals are rarely granted the luxury of reinvention after mistakes. Every appearance mattered. What distinguished Mary early on was not spectacle, it was discipline. Former royal correspondents in Denmark frequently noted how carefully she studied constitutional traditions, public etiquette, and Danish culture before her 2004 wedding to Crown Prince Frederik. Over time, public skepticism faded into respect. By the 2010s, Queen Mary had become one of the monarchy's strongest assets, particularly among younger Danes who saw her as modern, educated, and emotionally approachable. That reputation became even more significant in January 2024, when Queen Margrethe II shocked Denmark by announcing her abdication during her New Year address. It was the first voluntary abdication by a Danish monarch in nearly 900 years. Overnight, Crown Prince Frederik became King Frederik X, and Mary became Queen Consort immediately. The transition was smooth publicly, but privately, the pressure was immense. Suddenly, every gesture carried greater symbolism. Every speech, every appearance beside King Frederik, every interaction with foreign leaders became part of defining a new era for the Danish monarchy. At the same time, Queen Mary was still balancing motherhood with royal responsibility. Crown Prince Christian had begun stepping further into public life, while Princess Isabella and twins Prince Vincent and Princess Josephine remained closely watched members of a highly visible royal household. Then, in April 2026, came the deeply personal loss of her father. The Danish royal house confirmed that Professor John Donaldson had died in Hobart after a period of declining health. In a rare personal statement, Queen Mary wrote, "My heart is heavy and my thoughts are gray." It was unusually emotional language from a senior royal, and it resonated strongly across Denmark and Australia alike. What followed drew particular attention from royal commentators. Rather than retreating entirely from public life, Queen Mary gradually resumed engagements, appearing alongside King Frederik during official events only weeks later. Images from those appearances spread widely online, with many observers commenting on the contrast between visible grief and unwavering composure. Of course, online discussion also intensified around the pressures modern royals face. Some commentators questioned whether senior royals are expected to return to duty too quickly after bereavement. Others argued that Queen Mary's decision to continue working reflected precisely why public trust in her remains so high. But regardless of where people stood, one point became difficult to dispute. Queen Mary had become central to the stability and image of Denmark's monarchy. That role extends far beyond ceremonial appearances. Since founding the Mary Foundation in 2007, Queen Mary has focused heavily on domestic violence prevention, loneliness, mental health awareness, and social isolation. Unlike some royal patronages that remain largely symbolic, the foundation has consistently formed a serious part of her public identity. And perhaps that is why Queen Mary connects so strongly with audiences beyond Denmark. She represents a version of royalty built not on birthright, but adaptation. An Australian commoner who entered an ancient institution and slowly earned credibility through consistency rather than charisma alone. If you followed Queen Mary's journey over the years, this is the moment to join the conversation. Let us know in the comments which period of her royal life you think shaped her most, and if you're enjoying Royal Scope. Subscribe and like the video so you never miss our deep dives into Europe's modern monarchies. Because in many ways, Queen Mary's story is no longer simply about romance or royal transformation. It is about resilience. About what happens after the wedding, after the coronation, after the headlines fade, when public duty collides with private grief and composure itself becomes part of the crown.